And we are now live. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for joining this afternoon's webinar on MSc Educational Assistive Technology. Delighted to be joined by Professor Annalou Waller, Rolf Black and Rohan Slaughter, who will be telling you all about this programme this afternoon. Firstly, a couple of items of housekeeping. You will see in the top right-hand side of your screen you have the live event Q&A, which is now open. I've made a couple of announcements in there already. If you wish to ask any questions during this event, we'd be delighted to answer your questions and help you out. So please do put any questions you have in the live event Q&A. You will also be able to put on captions in English for this event. So please go to the bottom right of your screen to the settings item, and you will be able to put the subtitles on from there. I think that's all for housekeeping. So I will now hand over to Professor Annalou Waller. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am delighted to welcome you to this afternoon, and I'm going to ask Rowan to put me on the screen. Thank you, Rowan. We've got quite a packed afternoon today, and what we want to do is take you through some of the aspects of our new degree in Educational Assistive Technology. There will be opportunities to ask questions during the seminar, but also at the end. We've also asked some students that are currently on the course to come and join us to just share with you some of their experiences. So, who am I? I am the program lead for this wonderful, exciting new degree. I am a qualified rehabilitation engineer, but I am basically a computer scientist. So I joined Dundee in 1989 to do a PhD in augmentative and alternative communication. I soon discovered that we needed more than words and phrases. So I have spent the last 30 years researching how we tell stories and how we share who we are with each other. Despite all the work at Dundee in assistive technology, specifically to do with communication, we have not seen the benefits in the community. So I recently did a lot of research around the abandonment of assistive technology. And I'm sure that a lot of you who are listening will resonate with the fact that we can access loads of technology, but it ends up on the top shelf of the wardrobe in the classroom. So what we realized was that the missing link was to educate and train people to work as assistive technologists in the educational setting. And we are very excited about being the only group in the world, to our knowledge, to be training and forging a new profession to do with assistive technology specifically for education. But we believe in lifelong learning. So whatever situation or environment someone is in, be that a school or further education, higher education, or in the community, in a care home, at home, we all need to support the use, the effective use of technology to support greater quality of life and independence. And I will now hand over to Rowan, who is going to tell you more about the details of what the course entails. Rowan.
Thank you, Annalou. I'm just going to send my own video live. If I organise myself here, so I've got my video and the slides next to each other. So Annalou, thank you for the introduction. I'm putting my slides and my video live now, so hopefully everybody can see that. This is the schedule for today, so thank you, Annalou, for welcoming everybody to this session. I'm going to give us an overview next of the EduAT degree, so I'll cover the core modules, I'll cover who the course is for, and I will cover all of the entry requirements. I'll also tell you a bit more about our future plans, things that the wider research group are going to be doing. And then I'm going to hand over to Rolf Black, my colleague, who is, along with myself and Annalou, delivering the MSc EduAT. And Rolf is going to introduce our user centre. So I'm going to let Rolf tell you all about that. I won't steal your thunder now, Rolf. We also have a group of our current students, as Annalou mentioned earlier, who will be coming in to introduce themselves, tell you a bit about themselves, where they work, what their roles are, what they're aiming to get out of the course, and how they're planning on applying the curriculum. So we're going to have a joint Q&A after that, so we'll have a good half an hour at the end of the session where substantive questions can be asked of either our students or of the programme team. And we will be finishing up probably around about 10 to 5 today. So that's our plan for today. So I'm just going to carry on now with the, so Professor Waller's introduced herself. So this is me. And I'm a senior lecturer on our MSc EduAT. So our university is delivering this new MSc. Our first cohort started in January, so they've only done the first module and they're into the second one, which starts on Thursday. But we wanted to tell you a bit about why we created the course. So part of the driver for this was that currently, or before this course, there was no formal recognition for the role of assistive technologists working in education. So that had a number of issues in that when people wanted to recruit the role, it was really difficult for them to do so within the confidence that the people who were applying really had a broad experience base. So anyone who wants to can use the title assistive technologist currently. It's not a protected title. And for it to become so would require, and probably more than just our programme to exist, but it would definitely require a professional body, and it would require a route through the government to making it a protected title. And I think it's fair to say that until the course is further established and other courses are doing a similar, covering a similar set of learning outcomes, then this is a medium-term goal, I would say, to get this assistive technologist recognised as a distinct profession. So I collaborated with the university when I was working at JISC to help develop the course structure. So this process was supported by my former employer. And I joined the university as a lecturer in late 2020 to help develop and deliver the course content. So I've been with the university for about 5 months now. So what we're going to cover today is the module content, how we're delivering it, and what the entry requirements are. Now, given that this is an emerging profession, I think it's fair for us to describe this as drawing on 3 domains of knowledge: education or teaching, assistive technology, computing and IT, and the therapeutic approaches that you'd normally find, say, within speech and language therapy or occupational therapy, within those therapeutic approaches. So our comprehensive curriculum is designed to equip our students with a broad range of skills to be successful in this multidisciplinary role. So you've met Annalou and myself, and Rolf will introduce himself properly shortly, but you can see by our backgrounds here that we all have a range of different elements that we're bringing to this. So Annalou's mentioned that she's a rehab engineer, as is Rolf. Annalou's a computer scientist and is an expert. Her area of research is AAC, or alternative communication. So Rolf has worked with Annalou for 15 years in the research group and has a wide experience of conducting research, and also is expert at public engagement and outreach. So I've had a slightly different route in, having only recently joined academia. So I used to work in a specialist college, so I'm a teacher, I'm a assistive technologist and a former specialist FE leader. I have worked as an AT and an IT consultant as well. So this model on the right is something I'm going to come back to in a moment, but this is a further education model for how the assistive technologist can work. And when I show this model, what I'm trying to get across to people first and foremost is that the student, and we're not talking about one of our students here, this is the person that the assistive technologist is one of our students. So that is the person that they're working with at the center of the model. So the person who's receiving the assistive technology system or solution is the person at the center of this model. So it's what they want that's the most important thing in all of this. What they want to be able to do that they perhaps don't find easy, what they want to be able to do more easily, or to be able to do at all through the use of that technology. But it's not just the assistive technologist that enables that to happen. Now, as I said before, this is an FE model, further education model. So the emphasis here is on the transition to adulthood. If this was a schools-based model, the parents would be another circle around that student and their other family members as well. But certainly the professionals that need to be involved here are social care staff, physiotherapy staff perhaps, teachers certainly, possibly a behaviour specialist depending on the context, occupational therapist and speech and language therapist as well. So all of these people, so the key worker is the social care member of staff who's supporting the student. All of these people make the solution possible, but the idea here is that the assistive technologist is the chief integrator of the system and is shortcutting all of the connections between all of these people to make sure that the system is in place and supported for the individual who's going to be using it. But like I said, I will come back to this model again in a moment. So what is assistive technology? I'm hoping that many of the people who are coming to this webinar do know what assistive technology is, but let me start with a bit of an overview just in case. There's just to clarify what we mean by assistive technologist in this. So the point of assistive technology then is to allow students to either access the curriculum at all in our education context. So certainly someone who was, say, a communication aid user or possibly had a complex computer access system, then they're not going to be able to do anything without their assistive technology. It's vital that they have it, and without it, they don't access the curriculum at all. But for the vast majority of people, they'll be able to access the curriculum at a higher level if they're using assistive technology versus not using it. So the good example here is someone who needs, say, literacy support software. So these people who are using assistive technology are able to do more, be more independent, achieve at a higher level. They're the outcomes that we're talking about here. But in most cases, what we're talking about is allowing the people who are using assistive technology to have increased independence, access to communication, access to their environment, and that could mean the built environment, as in opening doors and windows and so on. But also, let's not forget about accessing leisure opportunities, enjoyment, and fun. And we should also talk about employment, because if someone doesn't access the curriculum sufficiently well to achieve the outcomes they need, they're not going to get a job. So we do need to think about employment as well. So assistive technology, if we use a common definition or a widely accepted definition, this is the ATIA definition. So assistive technology, AT, is any item, piece of equipment, software program or product system that's used to increase, maintain or improve functional capabilities of persons with disabilities. Now, that's very broad, so let's narrow it down a little. So in our education and the social care context as well, that many of our students are working in, so this is the EduAT students now, then we're talking about computer access devices. So this is things like alternative pointing devices or keyboards, other input devices like eye gaze technology or switches. There may be people that need, who've got low or no vision, and therefore they need things like magnification software or screen readers. And then there are people who perhaps are deaf or hard of hearing, and they need things like amplifiers or captioning, that kind of thing. Communication aids is something that the course will cover. So the augmentative alternative communication or voice output communication aids. If you don't know what these are, you may have seen Lee Ridley, Lost Voice Guy, winning one of the reality TV talent shows recently. And then, of course, the example that a lot of people would point to is, say, someone like Stephen Hawking, who used a voice output communication aid. He used AAC. But literacy and numeracy support tools, things like Read and Write, things like Clarisoft, Dragon, mind mapping software, all of that kind of thing is covered in our course. And we also consider things like the software that everybody uses every day. So the operating systems and the productivity software like Windows, macOS, iOS on the iPads and iPhones, and then Android as well, or Chromos. And then things like the Microsoft Office learning tools and the Google equivalents. And we will cover environmental control systems as well. So that's things like home automation or smart home technology that allows people with a physical disability to control their TV, video, turn the lights on, change the thermostat, open doors and windows, that kind of thing. It's all about independence and increasing people's ability to control the world around them. So I just wanted to give you a little overview of where I'm coming from. So I started, as I said before, relatively recently with the university, but for the last 5 years I've been employed by JISC as a subject specialist. So JISC is a EdTech charity that runs the network that joins all the universities and colleges together, but it also has a professional services consultancy group, which is where I was. And I provided support on both assistive technology and infrastructure to JISC member colleges and universities. I also did a fair amount of work in special schools as well. Prior to joining JISC, I worked at Beaumont College for more than 15 years. And I spent my time there most of my time as the head of technology, where I developed an integrated technology service that included mainstream IT, assistive technology, e-learning or technology enhanced learning and MIS systems. I spent the last couple of years I was there as assistant principal, responsible for the curriculum, project management and quality alongside technology. So I have a slightly wider experience, hence being a qualified teacher, as well as the technical elements. So this course is for anybody who wants to become an educational assistive technologist. So many of our students are teachers, some are therapists. So we have a speech and language therapist in our first cohort, and we also have technologists from a variety of backgrounds. So what generally happens is people who are coming into this course are expert in one of these areas. They know a little about a second and probably very little about the third of these three sort of disciplines or domains of knowledge. But what we do expect is that students who are coming in will have some prior experience and or are working in an AT environment. Now, certainly as is the case with the part-time route, most cases we'd be expecting our students would already be employed in a suitable context, and that is true of all of our first cohort of students. So that suitable context could be a school, it could be a college, it could be a special school, a specialist college, but we do have people from mainstream colleges in the first cohort. It could be that people are from third sector or charity organisations, care, social care type organisations as well. But it's important that the role that people are in requires in some way for that post holder to support the use of assistive technology. Now, our part-time option has been by far the most popular, which is what we expected. And that is because most people are looking to validate the skills that they already have, fill in the gaps that they may have, or the development opportunities that they're looking to capitalise on. A lot of people are looking to really exemplify, see new technology and software, hardware and software that they could introduce into their context. So people are really wanting to upskill, formalise their existing skills, and get some recognition for some of those existing skills as well. Now, where a student is not employed in a suitable context, it may be possible to identify work placements to allow them to undertake the course. And we wouldn't normally expect to do this for the part-time option. For the part-time option, we'd be expecting people to be employed in a suitable context. So if anyone's not sure whether they're employed in a suitable context, then they should contact a member of the programme team so that we can have a conversation about that and work out what might be possible. So we've got two modes of delivery. The first intake was in January, and all of those students are in the part-time route. We are planning an intake for September 2021. We've had a lot of feedback that aligning with the academic year was more suitable for a number of reasons, including funding, arranging funding, that is, from say training budgets or whatever. So that's one of the reasons why we've made this change. So the course is officially a blended learning offer. It's largely delivered online or remotely, but we do plan 2 intensive on-campus teaching weeks, 1 per year of the part-time route. However, due to the COVID pandemic, we are not having an on-campus week in 2021, although we do hope to do this in 22, depending on the situation at that time. So just to recap on a couple of points I've already made there. If someone is wanting to pursue the full-time route over a year, then we would have to organise placement opportunities for that to be possible. And if someone is interested in that, they should contact the programme team. And bear in mind that if we're going to supervise people directly, we would normally expect people to move to Dundee to make that possible so that they could work in a context that the university is familiar with. People who are doing it part-time over 2 years, we would normally expect them to already be employed in a suitable working context. And if that's not the case, then it's really important that people contact the programme team so that we can work out if there's a suitable placement opportunity. And if you've got something in mind, if that's where you are, then it's important for you to have maybe made contact with that organisation to see whether it's practical. It might be an organisation you already know, and that already knows you. But that's important that you get in touch with us. Okay, right. So here's our entry requirements. We do expect people to have an honours degree at 2-1 or above in a relevant subject. So that could be computing, education, or therapy-related subjects, or an equivalent qualification like a postgraduate certificate, diploma of education, cert ed. But we also accept that there's an awful lot of people out there who are very experienced in assistive technology and special education. So if someone has a number of years experience in a role where they've been supporting assistive technology in education, in any mainstream or specialist context, then you should contact the programme team, because we will accept that's an or there. You could have both, of course, but if someone doesn't have a degree, a first degree, that does not preclude you from doing this course, but we would expect to see a lot of experience to make up to balance the fact that you don't have a first degree. So I don't want to labour this too much, but we do expect applicants for the part-time route to already be employed. And we also, in that case, need to have evidence of support from an applicant that they're they're being supported by their employer to access the MSc EduAT. That doesn't necessarily mean that the organisation is paying for it, but it would mean that they were allowing you the time to be able to do the coursework, and were happy for you to do your coursework, the practical elements of your coursework, in your working context. So what we'd like to see here is a letter or a note, an email from an appropriate, suitable senior member of staff in your employing organisation, in the applicant's organisation, indicating that support for you to undertake the programme. So that has to be provided in some written form as part of the application. And again, if you're not already employed in a suitable working context, if you contact a member of the programme team, then we can help you out there and work out if there's a placement opportunity that may be suitable to allow you to meet the practical elements of the course. So it's also a requirement, and this will be understandable for most people who are already employed in this area, will already have an enhanced disclosure or a protecting vulnerable groups, if you're in Scotland, a PVG membership status. So the point of this is that you have been vetted to work with people with vulnerable adults and young people. So that used to be called a police check, mostly is referred to either as an enhanced disclosure or in Scotland as a protecting vulnerable groups PVG membership. So we have kept the entry requirements flexible. We do not want to miss out on anyone who has substantive experience of working in specialist or mainstream education who are supporting disabled students. If you've got experience of assistive technology assessment, provisioning and ongoing support, but you don't have a first degree, then please do contact the programme team. The likelihood is if you've got that experience, we'll welcome your application. So it's really important that you contact the programme team if you're not sure. Okay, I'm just going to give an overview now of the modules. So I'm going to talk through the core modules of our course. So this is the order that we teach them in as well. The order is set and it is intentionally designed this way. So our first module, the Assistive Technologist, introduces the role and the competency framework that it exists within. We're going to go into more detail on each of these, so I'm just going to very briefly say what they are now. The second module is the Introduction to AT Solutions or Systems. This is where we start to teach you about the software and hardware that's available. The Specialist and Mainstream AT Solutions is where we cover things like the baked into the operating system, accessibility affordances, things that are built into things like Office and the Google G Suite. But we also cover how we blend specialist and mainstream AT software and hardware to produce a system for an individual. So once we've told you what's available, or we've gone through all of the things that are available, and I should add that we're having quite a few guests into these modules, and I'll come back to that point later, we can then look at assessment for assistive technology, because you can't assess someone if you don't know what's available. We then have a AT and Educational Programs module, which is about embedding and supporting the use of assistive technology within the curriculum. And the curriculum could mean beyond the taught curriculum into what some people might call 24-hour curriculum. So that would bring into things like social care contexts, environmental controls and all those things. We've got an AT partner relationships module, and this does focus on things like making referrals to statutory services, teaming models and the like. Again, more detail in a moment. Finally, we have a dissertation project, which is intended to be done in an individual's working or placement context. And this could see you bringing in a new innovation and assessing the impact of that, among other things. Plus, we have 40 elective credits from education and health and therapy and computing. And this will, the credits chosen will depend on what you've done before. So we won't have people repeat things that they've done previously. They'll be able to pick modules that will extend your knowledge. And the first module has an element of this. So the modules generally have two assessments. Usually one is more practical than the other, and the other is more theoretical. But all of the coursework has been designed so that students can use the work they're doing anyway in their home organisation as a basis of their academic work. The point of this is to make it relevant, but also make it achievable. Because if you're working full time, then you're going to want the things that you're doing in the course of your work to be applicable to this degree. So we've really thought about the assessment design so that the things that you do for the assessment will be useful in your working context, or things that you're doing in your working context will be what you write about. So for example, in the assessment for assistive technology module, you'll undertake an assessment and write it up as part of your work, part of your assessed work. So I'm just going to go into a little bit more detail on these modules. So in this first one, we start with a tutorial that looks at a reflective skills gap analysis, and the point of this is to work out what you should consider for your optional modules. This is to address any gaps in learning. We also want to define the assistive technologist role in a context here. So we want to show where we're drawing elements from technology or computing, from health and therapy, and from teaching and education. So we do this by looking at different versions of the assistive technologist role. So we've got another number of examples of the role from across the sector, look at the roles, tasks and responsibilities from different organisations. And we also have students exemplify this through talking about their own roles and presenting to their colleagues on the course about how they work. So we are looking at this role as it's kind of a journey where you go from interdisciplinary working through multidisciplinary working to transdisciplinary. So let me explain what that means. So in interdisciplinary working, all the disciplines are around and they're generally passing the work between each other. In multidisciplinary working, you work together in smaller groups perhaps. So you might organise joint assessments, say for an occupational therapist and an assistive technologist to work together to, say, mount a device on a student's wheelchair, or to organise how someone has their workstation set up. But then in transdisciplinary working, you're starting to feather the edges between those professions. And that's where the really interesting stuff happens. It's very important to recognise, though, that you must make reference to the professional with however many years experience and the qualifications and so on, if you're not sure. However, if it's something relatively straightforward, like adjusting a foot plate, and you're competent to do that, then that's the judgment that people need to make. But that transdisciplinary working is where things really get interesting. But it does require trust, and it requires experience as well, and people being appropriate in what they choose to do. So that's something that we come into some detail on our AT partner relationships module, which I'll speak on in a moment. So individuals' prior learning and skills are something that we'd look at here, and we'll also consider the relevant legal, regulatory, ethical, professional and social issues associated with our provision of AT. So we will look at things like the inspection that a school or a college might have, depending on which part of the UK they're in. So we do stream this by the nation, because the care and education inspectorates differ between England, Wales, Scotland, Northern Ireland. So this model again. Now, I think it's important to say that I'm just going to describe how it used to work or how it still does work in one of my previous working contexts at Beaumont College. So we used this model to establish a community of practice, and this met every 2 weeks. Usually in a lunchtime, to try and get as many people there as possible. There would be things like a caseload allocation, where every student had a named assistive technologist, and that caseload allocation was mapped, where possible, to the allocation of the caseload allocation to speech and language therapists and occupational therapists, so that people would be working together around the needs of the same groups of students. So each technologist was also allocated a number of teachers and sessions to support, so they were embedded into sessions. They also did things like preparation of resources for speech and language therapy sessions, or for teachers. Now, the way that we allocated into sessions was about things like the needs of the people who were in the session, so not just the student, but the staff as well, and the supporting staff, not just the teachers. Also, perhaps the session was using more technology and they needed additional support. But our community of practice model allowed us to have things like case discussions. It allowed us to work around things like the new technology having appeared, things that might be useful for a given student. Someone's been to a conference, someone's been able to bring back some knowledge and share it with the rest of the team. It provided a fantastic opportunity to organise things like joint assessments, and basically to shortcut people to to what they needed. So this model really worked well. Okay, so recruiting assistive technologists. Now this is really difficult, and this is something we do talk about again in this first module. Without there being that obvious professional qualification or route into the role, generally people that are recruited have a really strong experience in one of the three areas and have to upskill in one, if not both, of the others. It's really rare to recruit someone who's fully able to undertake the role. So in our first assessment, we do ask students to identify the modules that they would like to take, the optional modules, and to justify that. Part of that's referring back to the skills assessment gap analysis, and part of that's about them identifying their own strengths and weaknesses. So I'm going to go through the rest of the modules in slightly less detail than that first one. So in our introduction to AT solutions or systems, we go through a range of assistive technology hardware and software. Guest lectures are coming in, and they're experts in their field. So we're bringing in people who are expert on things like eye gaze or switching, or technology to meet the needs of people who are deaf or hard of hearing. Or in one case, we've got a student who is expert in the use of technology to support people who are visually impaired or blind. So she'll be doing a session on that for our current group. But we're also bringing in people like an occupational therapist who's expert in postural management. We've got people from various suppliers who are expert on things like environmental control systems or communication aids, who've developed language packages for communication aids. So you really will meet very experienced guest lecturers. We've also got developers coming in as well. So it's a well fleshed out module, this, in terms of the wealth of experience that we've been able to access, and we're very grateful to our guest lecturers for sharing their expertise with us and with our students. But the point of the module is to introduce as a wide range of assistive technology hardware and software as possible, but also to contextualize where that is going to be useful. So who is it useful for? Where is a particular technology useful for someone with a specific physical disability or learning difficulty? So we won't just say here's a list of stuff. It'll be like here's a list of stuff, and this is useful for these people in these contexts, and you also need to consider these factors, and so on. We will consider the models of disability and how that can affect how organisations consider the assessment, provisioning, and ongoing support of assistive tech. We'll think about how we define assistive technology and why we would justify a particular definition or use a particular definition. We'll certainly look at the hardware and the software. We'll look at things like mounting systems. So there may be other physical accommodations or adaptations like different shaped wedges or other supports, perhaps to change the angle of a device, or an input device like an alternative keyboard or a different pointing device. We'll certainly cover AAC, or Augmentative Alternative Communication, environmental controls, including adapting things like smart home or home automation technology and making that accessible to people with a physical disability. We're going to be covering some of the relevant legislative or regulatory elements that relate to the selection and provision of assistive tech. Now, the specialist and mainstream AT module will cover things like universal design for learning. Now, it's really important that when you consider universal design for learning, that you might find that it will meet 80 or 90% of people's needs if you take a really good UDL approach. However, it will not meet everybody's needs. So you do need to think about how to meet the needs of people who have less common needs. Perhaps this is the higher needs group, or people who've got more complex combinations of physical and learning difficulties. So we will cover adapting mainstream tech for specialist use and blending mainstream and specialist technology into a single solution. So we want people to understand where you would choose to use a mainstream device and where you would maybe choose to use a specialist device, including where you use both or elements of both. We will look at things like using mainstream devices as AAC, say, or where you wouldn't do that and you'd use a dedicated device. We'll look at mainstream hardware, the accessibility options built into the operating system, and we'll consider things like if you're in a school or a college, how do you make that portable? So if someone configures their desktop, it's completely unreasonable if they've spent an hour with an assistive technologist getting that set up to expect them to replicate that every time they're logged in. So you need to have a way of making that portable, and we'll deal with that in this module. We'll also look at things like assistive tech software as a productivity tool for everyone. And again, we'll look at any regulatory or legislative elements that reflect this. So once we've worked out or gone through all of the stuff that's available, all of the assistive tech hardware and software that is out there, including the mainstream stuff, we will look at assessment for assistive technology. So this module is going to go through a number of different methodologies for needs-based assessments. And it is a very heavy focus on the student or learner-led approach. So we want to know what people want to do. So the most important thing is what does the student or the user of assistive technology want to achieve? And it has to be learner-led. We think one of the reasons why there's a fairly high rate of AT abandonment is because it's not meeting the needs or wants of the individual. They need to see what's in it for them, and they need to drive the process. So we'll go through a number of different methods of how you can do this needs-based learner-centered assessment process. We'll also think about different contexts and where we'll look at specific examples of how different organisations do the assessment, provisioning and ongoing support of assistive tech, and that can include pre-entry assessment as well. We'll look at how working with other professionals is important too. We'll consider where people have specific needs, what technologies or what types of technologies might be useful. We'll think about things like building an assessment kit of assistive technology that will be useful for your context. So the point here is to make the assessment kit match your student base, or the individuals that you're working with. We'll certainly be thinking about the joint assessment work that may take place in different contexts, how to document what you're doing, because if you don't document it, you can't share that knowledge across all the people that support this individual. And it's also very important for transition stages as well. Assessment documentation could be shared with the next context that someone goes on to. I think if we look at AT in educational programs next, so this is about embedding the AT into the taught program, inclusive working with teachers or OTs to scale that use of that system. So this is about starting simple and scaling up. That makes it more successful over time. We also want to think about equipping people with all of the knowledge that they need to build a program. So this is about how to be a trainer. This is the trainer element of this, because a lot of these people that are going to be in this role are going to be the only assistive technology expert in their organisation. So they're going to have to train their colleagues. So it's not just about embedding the solution that you're putting in place for the individual. It's also about a wider educational practice to enable that train the trainer role to function. It's about how to include inclusion. This is the inclusion of AT elements within specific education documentation. So there might be ways of funding AT that we'll go through here, or there are ways of funding AT that if you document it properly, if it's in the pre-entry assessment, perhaps you can influence some of the statutory routes or certainly make the referrals anyway. So there's a number of different elements here that I think will be common. So people who are already experienced in education, people who are teachers will know some of this already, but I think bringing everybody up to a level with this module is very useful. So we'll also cover things like risk assessment, e-safety, safeguarding practice, and we will cover how funding works across the nations as well. So this partner relationships module is very much about the teaming models that happen and how to do the referrals to the specialised services that do exist. And that is, again, variable by nation. So we'll be making it clear which bits apply to which parts of the country. We'll, again, be looking at in more detail about funding and some of the perhaps non-traditional routes for funding, including how to make, so if you exhausted all other opportunities, what about charitable options? What about trusts, grants, and so on? What statutory routes are there as well will be covered. But there are going to be times where you need to work with specialists who are not employed in your organisation. Things like joint assessments are still possible when the therapists perhaps that you need are community therapists or employed elsewhere. So there's a number of things there that we'll include in this module. So the dissertation is very much open for discussion with students. So it's based on the individual's work placement context or their working context. So for example, you might have a new method that you want to trial, something like a new assessment method or a refined assessment method or a documentation method that's associated with that you want to trial, see the impact of, and then share back to everybody else. So there are a number of different options here. So action research is possible, but there are other things that people could choose to do. So just briefly then, beyond our MSc, we're really thinking about the wider impact that this can have. So we've got approximately, we've got 15 students in this first cohort, but you can very simply see here in this ripple reach diagram where we train one AT, and if they're in a specialist context, they're probably working with around about 30 students in a caseload at any one time, an active caseload anyway. But then in a mainstream context, we probably expect at least 100 students, if not more, to be worked within a year. But over that time, they might be training a couple of hundred staff in their own organisation, which means, you know, potentially influencing 300 people. But each of those people, each of those students who gets a system, if they've got 3 or 4 family members who are trained or supported in some way, or at least have their knowledge of AT increased through materials that assistive technologists are sending home and so on, instructions, training materials and so on, all that kind of thing, you can rapidly see how the number of people who are influenced increases. But what we're also wanting to do in our wider research group is have a wider impact through policy engagement. So we've joined the All-Party Parliamentary Group for Assistive Technology as an associate member, and that's seen as working to support the Department for Education's EdTech strategy implementation. And right now we're working with the AT Experts Group, which is part of the DFE's EdTech strategy implementation, to look at things like the development of standards for AT delivery, and ultimately that may influence the types of training that is made available for not just for specialists, but for people at all levels. We've also delivered some work for the DFE recently around leadership for assistive technology that was aimed at school and college leaders, and that was done as part of the DFE's demonstrator programme. Now, all of this supports our research plans for having a longer term impact, and the point of this is to really build up a research profile that considers a range of different contexts. So what we're wanting to do through our research is to have impact in a number of different ways, at the CPD level, the policy level, and at the service or technology development level. All of this is supporting our sort of wider plans for a longer term impact, but we'd also like to build a research group around this. So in time we will have postgrads working on these areas. Right, I think it's time for me to hand over to Rolf to talk about the user centre. So Rolf, can you take control now?
I will give it a try. So let me just check that I can share that properly. If you want to share. Okay, so you should see my slides, but as far as it looks like to me, I'm still seeing Rowan on the picture.
If you send your video up to the top first, Rolf, and then yep, you use the button below the window that looks like got 2 panes.
Yep, I did that. There you go, send live. That should work. Here we go.
Yep, I'll mute myself.
Let's now. So welcome, thank you very much for joining us today. We thought I'd say a little bit more about my own background before I go into the user centre, which is an institution we're very proud of in Dundee. Okay, myself, I'm a bioengineer from Strathclyde Uni in Glasgow, actually, but also a German diploma engineer, mechanical engineer, as you probably will notice by my accent. I joined, as Rowan pointed out, Annalise team about 15 years ago as a researcher. That was after I left Germany for good to live in Scotland. Back in Germany, I had before that set up a very highly specialized or a network for a highly specialized walking aid that was supporting children with neurological movement disorders. And that brought me into really AAC, the Augmentative and Alternative Communication, because many of the clients we worked with, the children with neurological movement disorders, mostly cerebral palsy, could not speak and had to use some sort of communication aid, so which brought me then, when I came to Scotland, to join AAC as a research field. My work here in Dundee as part of the group, I'm a lecturer on the course, but I'm also responsible for the user center, which I want to tell you a little bit more about now. So, see this. So the user center is really the cornerstone in our approach to teaching, research, and also consultancy. It enables the crucial closeness between the academics and the students and researchers with the people who actually use their technology. So we really don't want to work in an isolated kind of lab environment. We're working with the people that use our technology to get feedback, input from them when it comes to designing and evaluating that technology. With the user center itself, we give these extraordinary people a base within the School of Science and Engineering. It's a physical place where the members can meet and actively collaborate with staff and students across the university. It's not just for the School of Science and Engineering, and also through our wider collaborations outside the university. We're actually quite unique as an academic institution with the user center, and it's one of our unique selling points. It was founded by Professor Alan Newell, the former head of applied computing, and started in 2005 with a dedicated space in the Queen Mother building, which is the building where computing is situated on campus. It's grown since from a drop-in center supporting older people who wanted to solve computer-related challenges to a bigger umbrella organization that is engaged in multidisciplinary work. Its user-centered approach includes vulnerable people, and the center is really at the forefront of work in accessibility and outreach as well. So the user center currently consists of 3 user groups. Let me tell you a little bit more about them. We have, first you see here on the left, Bytes and Blether, which is the center's original group, and it has developed into an independent peer support group now. Pre-COVID-19, they met daily in the dedicated user center space in the Queen Mother building. And additionally to these drop-in sessions, they support teaching, research, and consultancy within the school. And this is really the crucial point, that with these groups, as a student, you have access to users with very special abilities to help you with your work when it comes to looking at assistive technology. So they regularly participate in teaching activities by directly interacting with the students, and they share their knowledge and experience during module teaching, and more importantly, probably student projects as well, where the students work directly with individuals within the group. So the second group that is the Straight Talking group, which was founded a few years later by Professor Anna-Lou Waller. And this group really consists of people with complex physical disabilities, which all have little or no natural speech. They all use some forms of communication aids, so-called Augmentative and Alternative Communication, AAC. You probably remember Rowan mentioned that earlier in his talk. And the group really has been crucial to a number of research, EPSSC funded research projects. And what we're really proud of is that we work with them to teach communication skills on a really wide area of students. The group has taught so far more than 5,000 students across the university, from undergraduate to postgraduate, dentists, educational students, medics. So in the first 5 years, we've already reached a very large group of students that have a direct contact with this group to learn about how can we communicate and improve our communication when there are people who have no speech and need to use technology for communication. Our third group is the Tap and Talk group, which I established as a result of a collaboration with the local NHS Speech and Language Therapy. It's a group of stroke survivors who all have aphasia, which is a condition that affects your language production and receptions after a stroke. So in this group, we explore a very specific piece of tech. We're using an iPad to support communication and use it beyond therapy and using it as a speech prosthesis. So you might know that you can use the iPad as a communication aid. There are several apps, or quite a large number of apps available that help you to communicate using the iPad. But in this group, we're going beyond that. We're looking at what else can you do if you have a disability that is communication related, to explore all the possibilities with that piece of technology. And I'm proud to say the group's impact is both national and international. It really acts as a model for startups of similar groups at the moment, especially in Scotland. So a few years back, for instance, I was invited to a talk at the International ATAAC conference to talk about our work, and the group is also involved in regular workshops where they explore new ways of using the iPad. So it's a tool really beyond therapy and communication. We use it in previous workshops as a cameras. We had a photography workshop, and most recently, our most exciting workshop in conjunction with the RSNO, a music workshop with musicians from the National Orchestra. A while back, the group ran a workshop on stop animation, and based on this resulting movie, the group actually produced a mobile phone app. I have aphasia. We can see it's a proper example of user-led development of communication aids. So it's an app called I Have Aphasia that can be used to introduce yourself and introduce your disability to others by showing a short stop animation that explains aphasia. This is that was a collaboration with the Tayside Healthcare Arts Trust, one of our many collaborators we work with the groups. I'm proud to say this app has so far been downloaded more than 1,800 times, so it's quite handy little piece of technology that allows you to talk about your disability and explain it to people who don't know much about it. Many of our group members never heard of aphasia themselves before they had their stroke and then suffered from aphasia. So the center itself sits really quite well within the university's core purpose of transforming life. We're teaching across disciplines in higher education. I mentioned that already, that we're teaching undergrad medic students, dentists, design students, and educators. And the user center is also involved on many levels in our work to improve accessibility. And we have a computing staff who sits on the Web Accessibility Initiative, which develops the web content accessibility guidelines. But with the group themselves, we run, for example, accessibility audits for large companies on their web pages, for instance, on their apps, to allow them to gain feedback on how accessible their apps or their websites are. We regularly engage in public engagement as well through interactive large events. So recently we had events at the National Museum in Scotland, and more locally with the new V&A Design Museum here in Dundee. Also through workshops and other course delivery. So we're fostering co-production through interaction with the members of the user center who share their experiences and views. Facility really genuinely enables us to drive training and policy with a person-centered focus. So that's from my presentation about user center. I would like you to guide you to our user center website we have to give you a little bit of an overview by some illustrations what we what we have in mind when it comes to working with the students. You should see our websites now. We have a nice photo gallery here at the bottom. And I want to go all the way to the bottom to show you our most recent example about what it means to work with COVID-19. So before COVID-19, we all met personally on a regular basis. This is here a picture of our aphasia iPad group, the Tap and Talk group. And we all had to move to an online meeting medium. In this case, it's a Zoom meeting. And this was not an easy kind of step, just going from meeting face-to-face to meeting online. So we had to go through quite a few iterations of trying different platforms, from Teams to Blackboard Ultra. So there were different, we have Messenger as well, I think WhatsApp. So we had to find the best possible platform that was accessible to all of us, that allowed the users, for instance, with aphasia to see each other properly, to have the options of captions. So it's quite a design process, an evaluation process to get online. And we're quite proud to say that we also managed to help others in this process, supported other groups within the university and beyond to move from face-to-face to online, a really crucial part, especially during COVID-19. But more interesting for us as well now is when we are back to face-to-face. These are pictures from when we could meet up face-to-face, and you see quite clearly the very close relationship between the students and the groups. So we've got several group members here from the Straight Talking group who use communication aids, and it's really an important platform for the students to engage with these members of the groups, to allow them to help their work develop different apps or evaluations of apps, to have direct input from our members. I have another picture here I want to show you. Just lost my mouse. Let me just see if I can show you. There's an example of teaching medics with the group. So we have got regularly every year teaching undergraduate medics students on communication skills, where members of the Straight Talking group give talks and interactive workshops where they don't only talk about their own experience with medics, but also allow them to try out the different ways of communication aids that actually exists. And here's a really nice example I wanted to share you on how students can work with the Straight Talking group or the other groups when it comes to their final year projects. So in this photo you see an honors project student, an honors student in her final year. She's here in the front on the left, and she designed an eye gaze controlled exploration tool for our local observatory. We have a very nice, I think it's the first publicly open observatory in Britain. And this has an interactive exploration space that we want to try and make as accessible as possible. And the student here developed an eye gaze control system to explore star maps. And you can see me here setting up the eye gaze system in the middle with one of our Straight Talking group members to test this system that would later be hopefully implemented in the Mills Observatory here in Dundee. So it allows us to have direct access to members of the user center who have different complex disabilities and directly work with them when it comes to developing your own technology that should be accessible as much as possible. So that takes me a little bit through the observatory, through our public engagement activities we have. I'm very proud to say that with the group we've been in the National Museum and in the V&A to run interactive workshops on accessibility, and I'm going to show you a little film on our latest technology taster day at the V&A, where the group showed members of the public. Let me just, I need to, I'm sorry, need to find my mouse here. You can't hear it, but I have so much sound at the moment that I can't hear myself anymore. There you go. I'll start that again. Apologies for that. So in the V&A Museum, we had a wonderful workshop where we had invited guests. This was Becky, who is an eye gaze user, who was co-developing an eye gaze game Minecraft for eye gaze, iMind, and also talked about accessibility using eye gaze. And then we had an interactive workshop where the members of the group showed members of the public how you can actually use eye gaze and eye gaze technology to interact with the computer, in this case, to make your own drawings and be creative, and not only using it as an access method for speech. This brings me to the end of my part of the presentation. I think when it comes to questions, we have a dedicated session on question and answers, and we have now a number of students who have joined us. So I'm handing back to Ron for the moment, so we can fully organize the next part of it. Thank you. So Ron, I don't know whether you can take over or you need me to do something in that case.
You should be able to hear me now.
Yep.
Yep, okay. So I'll just Rolf, can you hear me okay? I'm assuming you can hear me all right, Rolf. So what we're going to do now is bring our current MSc EduAT students into the session. So I can see that we've got a number of people ready to go. So thank you everybody for joining. Can I ask you, Jonathan, Kim, Moira, Jess, Karina, can you switch your cameras on? Jonathan, I can see you've already got your camera on. Great, perfect. Okay, so what I can do now is, I think it doesn't really matter on the order, but maybe let's say Jonathan, can I put your stream live?
Everybody hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you. I'm just trying to get you. I'm just going to stop sharing my desktop, and Callum, I don't know if you're still on the line, but I'm struggling to select Jonathan's video feed to send it live. Oh, there we go. Thanks. Thank you.
Yes, I think I'm live now. It says
you
I'm
are live now. Yes. So over to you, Jonathan. If you could just give us your relevant background,
yeah,
your working context, talk a bit about your job role, why you chose the course, and how you're planning to apply the curriculum. That'd be fantastic. So over to you, Jonathan. Thank you.
Yeah, so I've worked in the area of SEND since 2011. Did a placement at a special school back in 2011 as part of my degree, which I completed in 2013. Then I joined the college as assistive technologist in 2017, and now I'm still assistive technologist, but I lead the assistive technologist service and the adapted materials service. And I've been looking for a course like this for quite a while. Like others in the cohort, it's kind of, you know, you've been doing this thing for quite a while, but it's, you know, it's getting the formal qualification, as it were, and also the biggest part of it is the networking with our peers as well. No, it's kind of one of the only times you're able to network with other people who kind of understand what you're saying, other than the students that we're dealing with. I think in terms of things that I plan on getting out of the course, I'd say it's to refine current processes that we do at the college, share these as well with our peers, but I think learn from quite a lot of the topics that we're covering on the course, and also the optional modules, and I think that'll really strengthen my personal knowledge of the area and the wider area and the doors that can open as well. Has anybody got any questions for me personally?
We can take questions.
Oh, right, are we? Yeah, sorry. Are we? Yeah, is it just an introduction from us all, and then we go to questions later, don't we?
Okay, yeah. I can see we've had a question posted that we'll which is a general one. But thank you, Jonathan. Really appreciate that input. We will have a general Q&A session at the end for everybody. So if you could just hang on the line, that would be great. Callum, can we put Kim live now? Thanks, Jonathan. Brilliant. Kim, you're on.
Fab, thank you very much. Hi, my name's Kim. I am an assistive technology lead at Bridgend College. The start of my assistive technology journey was many moons ago. I was a support worker for the charity Scope, and at the time Scope were running assistive technology within their other provisions. One Rowan worked at Beaumont College, and in order to become an assistive technologist you had to have a teaching qualification at that time. So I went off to university and did a PGC in post-compulsory education, and then went on to work as an AT for Scope in one of their education places down in Cardiff. So in my current role, I work in a general further education college, which has also got a residential home for learners with special needs. So it's quite a wide range of learners that I work with. Why I chose the course, very similar to what Jonathan said, is having that formal recognition of my role. Anybody and pretty much everybody on our course, that is their number one reason for doing the course, is because we, as Rowan said earlier on, we all come from very different backgrounds and we've all got a wide variety of experience, but to have that recognised qualification will be so valuable for the future. And a lot of what I've already learnt now on the course and what in the future, if you take this course, talks a lot about the recognition of the role, and thankfully in other areas that is beginning to happen. So that'll be really helpful for my career progression in assistive technology. And again, Jonathan took the words straight out of my mouth earlier. The networking opportunities. You know, we've only been doing it for a few months, but I've already learnt so much from my fellow students. So it really is, it's a fab course for what you sort of think is quite niche, but then when you see there's actually people all over the country doing what you do, it's a really great opportunity to come together and learn from each other and also from other experts within the field. So yeah.
Thanks very much, Kim. Appreciate you joining us today. If you could stay on the line as well, we'll have a Q&A going on in just a moment. So Callum, could you put Jess live next, please? Hey Jess, you're on.
Right, well, hello. So I'm Jess. I work at Headley's College, which is an independent specialist college in the northeast. Can everyone hear me, by the way? I just check. You can, that's okay. Just my thing's popping up and saying that I'm muted. So yeah, independent specialist college within a charitable foundation. I've worked there for 16 years, pretty much since I left college, and since the place opened itself, actually. I started as a support assistant, then became a senior support assistant. I've also done job shares as a personal tutor, and I'm now officially, my role is as technology instructor. In reality, that sort of means technology, everything, technology, you know, just I'm the general tech dog's body. Part of getting my senior learning support role, I had to do the PETLS qualification, the Preparing to Teach in the Lifelong Learning sector. And that was something that I really enjoyed. And so I went on to complete the diploma and then eventually also the bachelor's. So I am a qualified teacher, but I've always also been a problem solver, and I've always been interested in technology. I've always tried to learn from others around us, so other more experienced tutors, occupational health, speech and language, and I'm constantly looking for ways to help my students to overcome difficulties to be able to achieve an objective. So it was sort of natural that led into an interest in assistive technology as well. So the reason I chose to do the MSc was because everything that I know about assistive technology at the minute is experiential. I've done my own research into developments in assistive technology. I've worked, sort of trial and error with students trying to find different solutions for them. I've worked alongside, as I said, the speech and language and occupational therapists, but I felt that I needed some formal learning, some formal training. And it's one thing to go to all the exhibitions and the conferences and things like that, but needing to formalize that sort of training was something that I felt I needed to do. And then because it's only been me in the college, I've only ever worked at the same college. I've never worked for any other sort of specialist colleges or anything like that. So I'm in danger of becoming very sort of insular, which isn't good for the students. It's not good for the college and it's not good for me. I need to broaden my knowledge. I need to find other like-minded individuals to share that knowledge with. And like Jonathan and Kim already said, to network with people who think along the same lines as I do. And that is something that has been so beneficial. As Kim said, even in the first few weeks of joining the course, it's been really, really beneficial. So to apply my knowledge, there isn't an official assistive technologist role at the college. So that's something that I want to sort of carve out and formalise, and hopefully to transform the AT provision within our college so that it'll benefit the students to the best of my ability. So yeah, that's me.
Thanks very much, Jess. Really appreciate you taking the time to join us today. And if you could stay on the line for the Q&A, that would be great. Callum, can you put Moira live next, please? Moira, you're on. Please go for it.
Hi all, my name is Moira and I'm currently working in a special school in Bristol. My relevant background goes right back to 1986 when I joined special education. So I've been working in special education for 34 years and there's been a huge change in all things technology over that period of time. My interest started in the 90s when the BBC computers were online. Who can remember those? Well, currently, few people can. Currently, my job role at the moment at the school is to provide baseline assessments for students from 3 years old when they first join us, and give suggestions to teachers, class teams, and work with physios and occupational therapists and speech therapists in improving their access to the national curriculum. And our school is from 3 to 19, so we've got a primary, a secondary and a post-16 department. So I work with all of the students across all of the school. And I also provide mainstream IT assessments for students in ordinary mainstream schools in Bristol and local authorities to assist them with writing, with anything to do with national curriculum, and if they've got any difficulties within the school for physical difficulties with writing, then I can suggest some things to the SENCO through assessment, or working with the student, working with the class teams. That's my job role at the moment. I also have I work in a voluntary capacity for the Department of Education, and I chair the Special Needs Interest Group, and I moderate the forum for the Special Needs Interest Group for the SENCOs across the country as part of the National Association of Special Educational Needs. And in my other part-time role, I'm a Medio Legal Assistive Technology consultant, providing technology assessments for as a legal expert. So with all those things together, I wanted to refine my own knowledge and my breadth of knowledge, and that's the reason I took the course, is to actually get a recognised qualification like the other guys that have just been on live, like Kim and Jonathan and Jess, because there's not actually anything that's specifically for assistive technology. And it was, I've been looking, as Jonathan said, I've been looking for something like this for a long time, and then it suddenly popped up and I thought, I have to get on board. We've learned so much. We only started in January. We've learned so much from each other. I mean, I've done it for a long time, but I still learn a lot from everybody on this course already, from their different aspects of all their job roles, which has been really enlightening for me, all the way through for like the independent people in colleges that are working in colleges, and how it's very similar to my job, but there are still some differences, and that's all part of the learning process for me. What I'd really like to get out of the course is how to improve the current assistive technology delivery within my school, and empower staff and train staff to be able to use assistive technology successfully with all of our learners, because we've got some digitally shy staff in schools, still struggle with switches, etc., etc. So I'm hoping to empower people with training, knowledge, and my enthusiasm really for the subject and for all of this. And I want to help also with the Department of Education bits and pieces, and influence people higher up on how the importance of assistive technology and the role it is and it has in mainstream education, so that inclusion is one of my passions, and I want to be able to help include all students no matter what their difficulties are in education. So that's what I'm hoping to get out of the course, and to learn how to do that successfully. And that's it from me. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Moira. Appreciate you taking the time today to talk to everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. If you can stay on the line for the Q&A. I think we've got one more of our current students. Karina, are you able to put your webcam on? And Callum, can you put Karina live, please? Karina, can you hear us?
Sorry, I think I'm having some difficulty getting that to work. Sorry.
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, Karina, I can hear you loud and clear. Yeah.
I do apologize. I'm not sure what's happening with my webcam. My webcam is on, but it doesn't seem to work. So maybe this should be my target with technology. I should learn how to switch my camera on properly.
Well, don't worry about the video. Maybe you can still contribute as the others have done. Is that okay? If you
yeah, that's absolutely fine.
Right.
Okay, so my name is Karina. I am a teacher in a special needs school in Milton Keynes. I teach primary children with learning disabilities, and most of them they have cerebral palsy and sensory impairments and neurological disorders. So and I've been teaching them for a couple of years now, and I'm realizing that I've realized actually that they need a little bit more, and I found that more within technology. So I've been looking for a course, for something to expand my knowledge. I went to all the people I found in school and around the school, and just trying to improve my knowledge with technology and how I can help the students. And then I found, after that, I found the course. So I joined the Educational Assistive Technology course, just because I want to expand my knowledge a little bit more. I want to find more. I wanted to meet with people, so we can share the knowledge together and learn from them. And I'm enjoying the course. I've learned quite a lot so far. So we've been, for a couple of months now, and yeah, I've learned quite a lot. And I don't know, I think I'm trying to find some. What I want to do is just, at the moment, in my school, there's nothing. There's no assistive technology provision. So most of the assistive technology is done by the speech and language therapist. So I'm hoping, like, by the end of this course, I will be able to add assistive technology provision within the school. So everybody should be a bit more aware about what technology could do for our children within the school, and how we can improve their access to technology, their access to the world in general. So yeah, that's me.
Thank you, Karina, for joining. I'm sorry your webcam's not letting you be seen, but thank you for making yourself available for this and for making that presentation. So I think we're at the point where we could throw it open to Q&A. So this could be directed at the program team or at any of our current students. So I can see we've got one unanswered question from a participant today asking what are the weekly hourly demands for a part-time student. So part-time, we're delivering we are having a synchronous session once a week, currently on a Thursday afternoon from 3 to 5, but clearly the synchronous sessions aren't all of it, and each of the 20 credit modules has 2 assignments. The 10 credit ones have 2 briefer assignments, but there's also the optional modules that run throughout the year. So depending on which optional modules you pick, there'll also be some work to do there. But we have designed the course to be achievable whilst working full time, because everyone who's doing the course part time is also working full time. So we are cognizant of the fact. So I think I said in my presentation earlier that the assessment has been designed with that in mind, so that we can we can have people do things for the assignments that are part of their everyday work anyway, things they probably would have done anyway. But yes, they'll have to write them up, but it should be aligned with what people are wanting to do. So hopefully, Connor, I've answered that question that you have given us there. So we've got another question. Don't currently work in this area, but I'm really interested in AT. Can I take the course without working in this field? Not without undertaking a placement opportunity to allow the situated learning to work. So if you're not currently employed in a role that would allow the use of AT in a school, college, or social care or third sector organisation, then you wouldn't be able to take the course without us talking to you about organising placement opportunities. So it may be that the full-time route is more appropriate, although with the full-time route we'd expect people to likely move to Dundee in order to be supported by university staff to access a placement. But if people need a placement organising, then they should really contact the programme team as soon as possible. I've had another question. After COVID, will you be able to do it remotely, or will you have to attend on campus? So the course was designed to be delivered online largely because we were expecting the vast majority, and this has been borne out by our first cohort. It was designed to be done primarily as a part-time distance learning or remote learning, blended learning really course in the sense of having a week. So put COVID to one side. What we would have done was would have an on-campus week that was like a block teaching where we would be in Dundee, And on the part-time route, that would be for 1 week per year. So for 2 weeks total, one each year. And we are hoping to do that in 2022. And we're finding other ways of dealing with it. Currently, there'll be no on-campus teaching in 2021. I hope that answers the question. It was designed, pre-COVID, this course was designed to be run online because people are all over the country. So you've met some of our students and you can tell by their accents, they're all over the UK. So it's largely online, but is officially blended because we have these on-campus block teaching weeks. Currently not doing it this year, hope to do it next year. Yes, I like the phrase digitally shy. That was very diplomatically put by Moira. Thank you. Okay, what sort of opportunities would you expect to be available once you complete the MSc? Okay, so there's a two-part question. I'll take that first. I would expect that people who have the MSc to be able to go for assistive technologist jobs within mainstream and specialist education in particular, but also I think people who've done this course would be attractive in mainstream and specialist schools and colleges in teaching and other roles, learning support or management of learning support or additional learning support teams, that kind of thing. And the second part of the question is there academic progression after this course? Well, quite possibly. In my presentation earlier, I talked about the fact that we're building a research group around the programme. So we're aiming to secure funding for research students to undertake a further study, including PhDs. Hopefully that answers the question. But please, we've got all our students on the line, so if there's any questions for current students, then please do ask.
Rowan, can you hear me?
Yes, would you like me to?
Maybe I can just reiterate that we have a long history of supervising PhDs, and although money isn't always available, we will try and find funding for PhDs as well. We also have research projects from time to time, so the ideal is for students to do their PhD and then do some postgraduate research work and then either follow an academic career or go back into industry, i.e. schools or colleges or companies. Thanks, man.
Thank you, Anna-Lou. That's useful to have that wider answer. We've got a question, can I take the course whilst living abroad, since it's mostly online? This is actually quite a complicated answer to do with visas and things. And there is still, in normal times, we would be having the block teaching in Dundee, which means that students would need to have a visa that allowed them to come and study in the UK. So I'm afraid that I can't give you a comprehensive answer to this because we're currently looking into it for students that have, or prospective students who are applying now. So our admissions team are looking at the visa requirements for people who are living abroad but would like to take the course whilst part-time, whilst working abroad. So if you are living abroad, you'd certainly need a appropriate working context to be able to take the course. So if you contact the programme team through our email address, can we do an announcement to put the MSc MSeduat at dundee.ac.uk email address into everybody? Can we do that? He says, looking at Callum. So if you email us, we will come back to you as soon as we have a definitive answer about whether someone who's living abroad could take the part-time route. Okay, anything else we can answer? Any questions for our students who are all still on the line?
I think we can maybe just get the students to talk a little bit about how they've found the course so far, and obviously most of the students are working in addition to studying, and how they found balancing that is a question I think we've been asked at a similar event. So
good point, Callum. Would anyone like to take that? Just grab your mics, guys, if there's one of you that would like to take that.
we'll just throw Jonathan in at the deep end first.
Oh yeah, do that, yeah.
Go on then. Yeah, so I think because it's the same context as to what we're all doing in our day jobs, it makes the balance easier. Whereas if we're doing a master's in something else, I can say it'd be quite difficult. But because you're doing it in your day-to-day job, it's something you want to do for a start off, and all you wrap around things in relation to the course, you're either doing them day to day, or the course is pushing you to do them day to day, which is beneficial all round. So I think the split so far has been really workable for me anyway.
That's good to hear. Thank you, Jonathan. We've had another question for students. So, does all your varied backgrounds help your outlook on AT on the course? Would anyone like to take that? So, does all your varied backgrounds help your outlook of AT on the course?
I'll take that one.
Okay, Kim. Yeah.
Just poor Jonathan. Yeah, 100%. It helps loads, because I think sometimes, like personally, I've worked in a special needs school, which was ages 3 to 19, and now I work in general FE. So they're two ends of the AT spectrum, really. So it's easy to sort of be quite complacent in your own, I think Jessica said, in your own little bubble, and not really think about that outside world. You know, I'm totally consumed by general FE and what's happening in general FE. And this course has been a really great reminder that there is so much out there, and you know, why within our own little context should we stay within that bubble? Because there might be something that I can pinch from, not Moira, who's in a specialist school in Bristol, you know, or Jessica likewise up in Newcastle. So yeah, no, it's a really great thing, and that socialization of the course as well. Even online, there is an element of socialization, has been really helpful to not only for the MSc itself, but also my working context and my day-to-day work.
Thank you, Kim. Yeah, we just had another, I think we've answered the question, how have you found working full-time pandemic and doing the MSc for the students? So this is for students. Anyone else like to come in on that? I know Jonathan's kind of touched on it, perhaps not on the pandemic angle, but does anyone want to come in on how have you found working full-time pandemic and doing the MSc?
Yeah, I don't mind.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Moira.
Working full-time, pandemic, MSc, let me think about that one. Yeah, it's been tricky. It's been quite difficult, but I think because I'm working part-time in the school, pandemic has helped me work from home a little bit. So I've been able to have a bigger work-life balance with the pandemic and working from home. While the school's been closed, we've had very few students at school. And MSc is just constant. I live and breathe assistive technology at home and at work, because I've got a stepson who's got cerebral palsy, so he's 25 and he's fully accessible. He's eye gaze user. So yeah, it's been a bit of a work-life balance, but it's been okay. It's actually been okay with pandemic into all of that mix as well. But it just makes me want to stretch myself a little bit more, knowing that pandemic is there as well. What's life after pandemic? But yeah, it's been absolutely fine. Absolutely fine.
Pleased to hear it, Moira.
Thank you.
Would anyone else like to come in on that?
Yeah, I'll jump in. Having just finished my bachelor's in 2018, I thought I would never go back to education again. I thought, right, that's it, I'm done. And then obviously this course came up and I thought, oh, masters, can I manage a masters and working full time at the same time? I spoke to a friend of mine who's also a university professor, and she sort of helped me realise that actually, once you've done your bachelor's, doing a master's on top of working full time, there's not a great deal of difference in sort of the workload. I think as long as you can make sure that you plan your time out effectively, and you ask questions when you're unsure of things. I think that's one of the really key things, is being able to make sure you ask questions in a timely fashion. and like I say, plan everything out, make sure that you know what you're doing when you're doing it, and even setting aside time specifically for doing your master's work. It is hard, as everyone else has said, it is hard. I'm not going to lie, but when you sort of apply yourself properly like that, it is possible, it is doable.
Thank you, Jess. So we just had another question about the fees, and Rolf and I have both put the link in there to the page that tells you about that. It also has some links to funding information as well on that link. So we've got another question. You mentioned the social aspect in remote learning. How does the course manage that socialization? So the online sessions are as interactive as possible. We aim to be doing things like group work online. It's more like a seminar is our intention than a simple presentation or lecture. So we also have we've got some more informal routes as well, like we're using Teams between sessions. We have a Friday afternoon drop-in, like a sort of, I think Rolf set it up as a coffee time, which people do join, and I'm certainly aware that students are working together on various things and talking to each other about things that they're doing in their work with each other. That is happening, so it's happening fairly naturally. So I'm hopefully answering that question. Any students want to come in on that, how we're managing the socialization?
Yeah, I'll come in on that one as well. Because we're using Teams, we've got the different channels. We can have we've got a general chat channel, and I've tended to use that personally if I've needed a little bit of information on a certain subject. For example, a few weeks ago it was information I needed about 3D printers, and because we're all sort of tech wise and we know kind of what we're talking about sometimes, that some of the guys got back to me with some information, which has been really good, and then you get to have a little bit of a back and forward there, which I've found particularly useful.
Thanks, Jess. Anyone else want to come in on the social aspects of the course, or how we're interacting? Okay, so we can go to our next question, which is, it's been a while since I did academic work. What support is there for students returning to university? So we do have an academic skills centre at the university. Lots of sort of help for all students, not just returning students. But certainly we've been aware that we've designed the first module in particular to be fairly. The assessments are fairly reflective about the current practice. So it's meant to be, if you're perhaps doing an essay for the first time in a while, say, or an academic submission, we have done sessions to talk to students about methods of referencing and things like using academic referencing within the electronic tools that are available to automatically generate endnotes and all that kind of practical stuff. We've shared tips on doing research, so we've aimed to be as supportive as possible, and I'm also aware that students have been supporting each other on some of those aspects as well, tools that they found useful, that kind of thing.
Maybe I can come in here again, Rowan.
Absolutely.
The university is very, very aware that different types of students need different types of support. So there's the library, there's the academic skills unit, there's the disability services, there's the student union, and together they provide a really cohesive support centre for any support you would need. And that includes academic upskilling that Rowan has just discussed. Thanks, Rowan.
No, thank you, Annalie. that's all useful. Our next question we've got here is, are all assignments essay based, or are the research projects presentations? No, not all essay based. There are when we get back to the live, the on-campus delivery, then there'll certainly be joint presentations that will be happening as part of that from students that will be part of the assessment. We're also going to, during the COVID period where we're not doing the block teaching, there'll be assignments that will be things like making a video in lieu of a live presentation. And certainly students have, whilst it's not been assessed, students have done presentations to their to the programme team and to their peers, and that was partly about exemplifying current working contexts and different people's roles and how they worked. So no, not all assignments are essay based. There'll be a variety of formats. Any other questions from anyone?
Vaughan, it might be worth mentioning as well that obviously the final project can be research based, and so there's a lot of possibilities to create your final project and make that very much based in research, and that's obviously marked at the end of the day.
An excellent point, Rolf. Yeah, the final project could be an entirely research-based piece. It could be action research. It could be introducing a new innovation or a new method of working. Things like a new assessment template is an example we've used before. And then it could be looking at a piece of training that you're delivering to your colleagues. It could be something to do with transition stages. You know, what do you do in terms of an AT passport? All of these kinds of things are possible for the projects. Okay, have we got any other questions from anyone? Anything anybody would like to ask our students? And just while people are having a think, those of our students who are still on the line, is there anything we haven't talked about that you think you'd like to tell prospective students? Anything you haven't shared yet that you'd like to? Putting you on the spot a bit.
Do the course.
Just as simple as that, Kim.
Yeah, just, you know, that should be the plug line. No, I think, you know, I'd speak on behalf of everybody, as much as I am joking, but it's been, you know, it's been a really, it's only been a few months, but really, really informative, helpful. It's already changed the way in which that I do things. Particularly the first module is very self-reflective, and it's not something I've really truthfully done, certainly not in a long time, is to look at what I do and how I do it, and then also you know, policies, procedures, laws, things like that you just sort of take for granted. They're there, you know they're there, you know you've got to do certain things. But you don't truly reflect. I feel like I was very much on a bit of a treadmill. I was doing what I do, and I knew what I felt confident in what I did, but I didn't really reflect very much. So even within the first module, it's really impacted the way in which I work, and arguably made me a better assistive technology lead for the college that I work in. So you know, there's loads of reasons to do it. I can't think of a single reason not to do it. So would thoroughly recommend to anybody, you know, thinking about it to really look into it now. And also, if you know, if funding was something you were concerned about, I would say again to speak to the place where you work, because what it will bring to that institution is huge. So yeah, that's it really. I'd thoroughly recommend, and I know I'm speaking for every other student that's here at the moment, but obviously they can speak for themselves, but I just like the sound of my own voice. So
well, thanks, Kim. I appreciate that. Does anyone else want to come in?
Yeah, I'd just briefly touch on that. Really, it's if people looking at it and they're currently working in this sector, they'll know, as of recently through the pandemic, the importance of inclusion on the agenda, whether it's in institutions, software providers, hardware providers, colleges. And if you think to yourself, well, you know, I'll wait a couple of years and join the program, I'd like Kim says, I'd get on the bandwagon now, because it's only going to help you further down your career path to get this course in your ammunition. That's what I'd say.
Thank you, Jonathan. Does anybody else want to come in?
Can I just add something? I just want to add. Yeah, I just want to add what Kim to Kim and Jonathan there. In light of the current situation, in light of the pandemic and all that's happening, it really emphasises the need for assistive technology and for inclusion for all in all of this, and that it really highlights the amount of technology and the process of technology that have been lacking in certain years, and how much we need to expand on that for students with special educational needs, really. So this course is the one you want.
Was there someone else who wanted to come in? Thank you, Moira. Karina,
yes, can I add something? I'm not sure if, yeah. What I want to add is I'm coming from a background of teaching, and I've been teaching in special needs, you know, for a long time. And I suppose I was at the beginning, I was a little bit scared about the fact that, you know, everything is so much technology and is probably out of my comfort zone a little bit. But I think all you need is a little bit of open mind, because I feel like I'm receiving the support to understand how technology works and how we can help, you know, in my case, our pupils, you know, to access education. So although perhaps it's so easy to be frightened and go, oh my God, it's too much technology, I have no idea, it's too technical, it's too engineering, too computing, you know, all sorts of. I suppose it's you know, all you have to have just having an open mind and ask questions, because a lot of people hear the course that they can answer and support you to, you know, learn a little bit more.
Thank you, Karina. Our next question in the chat has been, where do you hope this course will take you for the students? And I think that's kind of been answered by some of them already. But if anybody wants to come in on that point, where would you like the course? Where do you hope this course will take you? Anybody like to come into that? Jess?
Yeah, if it's all right. I'm hoping that the course will give me the foundation, a stronger foundation, sorry, to build on, to help the students at college to be able to achieve, to be able to do what it is that they want to do and get what they want out of life. I think it's important that they have that opportunity, and by building a strong assistive technology provision within the college, you know, we'll get there, I hope.
Anybody else like to come in? Thank you, Jess. Any of our current students want to come in?
I would say that if the master will, if the course will help me to make a little bit of change in the life of one pupil in my class, in my group, I think it's, you know, it's worth it. And if I can expand it to the whole school, and the course will enable me to add probably like a structured assistive technology in our school and make a difference in the life of the rest of the children. I think that's, you know, that's the main reason I'm choosing the course, and I'm hoping that it will get me there.
Thank you, Karina. Anybody else like to come in? Moira?
Yeah, I've just got one final word for this piece, this question. I'm hoping that the course will enable me to move all of this knowledge that I have and that other people have given me, and then just, I mean, we're very fortunate in education that when we're in education and the students are in education, they get a lot of things given to them, thrown at them, taught to them, but then when they leave education and move on to their adult life, it changes an awful lot. So I'm hoping I'll be able to empower people as they move into their adult lives, and the people that are giving them whatever care or extra education they've got after school. So through the transition process into adult life and beyond, that's where I'm hoping that I can change. So certainly in our authority, there's a huge gap in our authority. Education's fantastic. Once they get into adult provision, it's not so great. So that's what I'm hoping for, that we can change that mindset and carry this all the assistive technology stuff that happens in education through into their adult life and beyond. Thank you.
Thank you, Moira. Annalie, did you want to come in there?
Do I want to come in? I've been at this stuff for over 30 years. I've seen the potential of what can be done, and I think this course gives us the opportunity for once and for all to actually start placing the resource, the people resource, in the organizations where it is needed, so that we can truly support people to be the people they are meant to be, because unless we support their learning, no one else is. So we need to support the teachers and the staff to enable people to achieve their potential. Sorry, that's my usual. That's why I wake up in the morning, because I know we can make a difference. Thanks, Rowan.
Thank you, Annalie. We've got one. I think we'll just have answer this one last question, which is, when you all say about formalising the role, how will the university help towards that formalisation? We've already managed to work with colleagues in the Tech Ability Service, the NatSpec service, to have ESCO, which is the European Skills, Competencies and Organisations database, recognise the assistive technologist as a distinct role. So whilst ESCO doesn't have normative power, it's a really good first step towards that. So we intend to, as the programme is more established, we will look into the creation of a professional body, and we'll try and take the whole thing through the government process to make it a protected title. So the programme team will do that in collaboration with current and future students. So that's how we intend to go about the formalisation of the role, but it will require wider consultation than just within the university. We can't just do it ourselves. It needs to be with government and others, which is part of the reason why we've done things like join the All-Party Parliamentary Group for Assistive Technology as an associate member. So hopefully I've answered that question. Annalie, shall I pass back to you for a final word?
Yeah, sorry, I wasn't expecting that. It's been a real privilege to be with you today. I have the dream team in Rowan and Rolf. The reason why the University of Dundee is running this course is because we have the contacts, we have the knowledge, we have over 40 years of research expertise in this field, and that's just the physical years. So if we count up our experience, we have far more. We would love to talk to you. If you're even thinking of doing the course, we are here to support you to make those decisions. So if anyone wants to know more, please do not hesitate to contact us on the email that Rolf posted earlier, or visit the website and follow the links to either myself, Rowan or Rolf. we aren't going anywhere, so please make contact if you wish to do so. Thank you so much, and thank you for all the support my colleagues have given us to run this event.
Thank you everybody for coming. Thank you everybody who contributed, especially our current students. Callum, I think we can leave it there.
Yeah.
Thank you everybody.